Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 365 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. A little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight, she is, of course, the greatest hostess in the known universe. There's no better. Erin Paulette! How you doing, Erin?
I am doing surprisingly well, and I don't know what combination of factors it is, but so I recently changed one of my depression meds from Wellbutrin to Zoloft, and that, among other things, lowered my blood pressure. And so my blood pressure, I had been hypertensive. I mean, I still am without the medication, but today I had the best blood pressure reading I've had in a long, long time, 138/78. Which is fantastic for me because prior to getting on this medication, the number was, why are you not in the ER? And I've been getting better sleep tonight. Well, not just tonight, but over the past few days. And it's really, really great. Things, it seems like they're finally getting better. And there's a part of me that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. But, you know, my blood pressure medication is also an anti-anxiety, so it's helping with that. So I'm not just constantly dreading when are things going to get worse. So maybe things are getting better? I mean, if nothing else, I'm going to enjoy the good day I'm having today. They are rare enough.
Well, that's awesome to hear, Erin.
Yeah. And hey, episode 365. So now if you listen to one episode a day, you can fill an entire year.
Look at that.
Yeah. And before someone comments about, what if it's a leap year?
Well, don't do it then. Or listen to the first episode twice as punishment. Or no, you listen to the first episode twice as punishment. You deserve it.
It wasn't that bad. So how are you doing, Weer'd?
I've had a little bit of a rough few days. It's all family stuff, so it's not anything that's anyone should be concerned about. It's just stuff. Balls needed to be put into motion. Things are happening, and it hasn't been entirely pleasant. And so I've been grumpy for most of today, except for planning on the show. There's a reason why I do podcasts. It cheers me up. But yeah, no, my weekend just evaporated. Like, that's gone. I will say, changing the subject ever so slightly, on Thursday, I actually had a little bit of rare free time and was like, oh, you know what? The weather's kind of nice. And I have been looking at one of my bushes that greatly needed to be pruned. And I have an apple tree in my backyard that desperately needed some pruning. It had a bunch of dead branches, and one of which was one of the forks off of the main trunk had finally died off. I mean, it had been cut back several times because it was creeping into the neighbor's yard. But it was finally dead and time to go. So I tried to saw through it. I don't own a chainsaw, but I tried to saw through it with a bow saw, and the blade started binding and all that. So I grabbed my felling axe and I started chopping into it. And it gave me a very nice perspective because chopping the branch off of a thick branch off of an apple tree with a felling axe that you're not really choking up on, so you can really get a little bit more accuracy, because I didn't want to swing and like miss and hit the trunk or something, or hit another branch that was healthy. And so I wasn't quite giving it the swing for the fences, and it was sending a lot of shock into my hand, and that hurts a lot more than shooting a 454 Casull revolver. I tried to I opened a jar just before I came down to do the show, like, ow. Oh yeah, that was that's what chopping the tree down. And I was just thinking about a few months ago when I took the inaugural voyage of my Ruger Alaskan to the range and shot a full box at 20 through the thing, and then for the rest of the week my hand was hurting, and I'm like, you shouldn't do that anymore. Save a few for later.
So I have to ask, when you were swinging the axe, were you wearing plaid flannel?
I was. Of course I was.
Good. You were wearing the appropriate uniform.
Yes, right. I was wearing plaid flannel and jeans. I was not wearing a hat with ear flaps, but it was actually quite warm. So yeah. So shall we get into some news?
Yeah.
All right. So first up is, I mean, this is one of those ones where it's at the appellate level, so it may keep going up. And honestly speaking, I can't read the tea leaves on this one, but essentially, New York State has a background check system for ammunition purchases, as does California and Massachusetts. And it's being challenged by NYSERPA, or is it? Yeah, I believe it's NYSERPA. Or is that a different case? Yeah. So this is also a NYSERPA case, and they are challenging the background check for ammunition under as a anti-Second Amendment. And this appeals court has ruled that it is not unconstitutional, and New York can continue with this extremely dumb law. And of course, I always say extremely dumb because anybody that owns guns knows that ammunition really isn't that big of a deal. It's not particularly scary. It's not particularly dangerous. It only becomes scary and or dangerous when you stuff it into a gun. So if you control the guns, the ammo is not a big deal.
So, as a result of this ruling, there is a circuit split because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down California's ammunition background check requirement last July. So, now that there's a conflict between these two circuits, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that SCOTUS will take it up, but they usually intervene in some manner when there is a circuit split like this.
Yeah, that is certainly something we've been hearing a lot with Second Amendment issues, is the fact that a circuit split is usually a compelling thing for the Supreme Court to take something up, but it's also, circuit splits are very, very rough on Second Amendment cases because the country is so divided on the Second Amendment. Is the states that have gun bans are going to be the states that are going to have the the most anti-gun appellate courts, and then the states that have the most pro-gun appellate courts don't have gun bans. So it's very, very difficult to get a circuit split.
Well, I mean, it's very difficult for a gun prohibitionist to sue a state essentially saying your laws aren't strong enough, make them stronger.
Mm-hmm. That's also true.
So there is some, I don't know if it's really selection bias, but there is a bias in play here that does favor the prohibitionist states. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those, again, I say it a million times, there's nothing partisan about the Second Amendment. There shouldn't be. If you are extremely left-wing, you should be just as supportive of the Second Amendment as someone who is extremely right-wing.
Check out the Liberal Gun Club.
Correct. Yeah. It's just, makes a ton of sense. We're recording this after the No Kings protests, and if you think that Donald Trump is a tyrannical king, probably be a good idea for you guys to have a bunch of guns. And so it's one of those, like, it's not a partisan issue at all, and so, but meanwhile, in practice, it is 110% a partisan issue, and it's deep blue states that have the both the anti-gun politicians, the anti-gun electorate that supports these sort of things, and the anti-gun appellate courts that will uphold these. So, yeah. So that's why that doesn't happen. But again, as you said, with this one, we've got a circuit split. So that is actually good news for it moving up. And like I said, I don't get too happy or sad with any of these lower ones, because unless it's like the some of the previous cases where the DOJ essentially stopped defending the gun control laws and just said, all right, cool, the appellate court ruling can stand. It really only gets interesting when it's actually being taken up by the Supreme Court. Speaking of which, the Supreme Court has stated that they are going to take up a guns and marijuana case. Of course, anybody who's bought a firearm at a gun shop and filled out a 4473 knows that there is a checkbox for being a user or an addict of illegal drugs. And there's an interesting shaky legal ground in the fact that many states have legalized marijuana either for medicinal use or for recreational use, but the federal government has not legalized it, and marijuana is as illegal as heroin as far as the federal level is concerned.
Schedule 1, the most illegal there is.
Yep, and it's dumb. It's so dumb, and I will just say that if in fact somebody went through and just told the DEA to take marijuana off the schedules and just have it not be a federally scheduled drug at all, nothing would change for as far as access to drugs in the states that that have voted against it, because guess what? When people get picked up for smoking pot or for possession, it's done at the state level. It's not like the DEA's busting parties or looking under bridges for kids smoking dope. So
that's actually something that I say when I am discussing gun control laws with people, usually prohibitionists, who are saying, well, we need to make it illegal so it's harder to get. And I will say, marijuana, Schedule 1 narcotic, the most illegal kind of drug there is. Mm-hmm. Go to any high school in America, and I guarantee you will find at least one minor who has a way to score marijuana. Mm-hmm. Tell me again how prohibition works.
Again, look at the numbers on the opioid crisis. Like, it's all like straight up illegal. I mean, sadly, the amount of times I have watched people shooting smack just on the sidewalk in broad daylight is really just sad. And it's one of those that is like there's no medicinal level to it. You can't even go get a doctor to prescribe you some diacetyl morphine, which is the medical name for heroin. Some countries still do. You can still get it as an opiate pain reliever drug, but it's in the United States, it's illegal for doctors to even prescribe it for you. And it's not all the heroin that's out there is illegally manufactured by various cartels. And yet we are having all these opioid overdoses. So yeah, I don't think the changing access. I think the people who want illegal drugs are getting illegal drugs just the same way as the people who want illegal guns are getting illegal guns. Mm-hmm. But this will be an interesting case to watch. Again, I don't think that there's any problem with this. I do a drink segment on Handgun Radio, so yes, I enjoy myself some intoxicating liquors, and yet I'm also a gun owner, and nobody cares, and I'm not even afraid to mention that. Yes, I do take a drink under extreme social pressure, and in fact, I also own guns. I do not mix the two because that is unwise. Though when legal, I may occasionally have a beverage while I've got a gun on me, because I'm not the same reason I will maybe have a beverage and drive a car. If I'm comfortable driving a car, it's really I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable carrying a gun, but that's again only where that's legal. Mm-hmm. But suddenly say marijuana is somehow drastically different than that is beyond foolish. But there is some talk about the defendant. I'm not going to get into it, but he's as Matthew from Geek Sketches and Guns was telling us before this, there's a lot of shadows of Rahimi, shall we say, with this defendant. I won't go into it because, number one, I haven't really read too much into it. But there is definitely some talk about this guy not being the greatest defendant on the planet, and as much as that shouldn't make a bit of a difference, if it's a good cause, the court should see it as a good cause. As we saw with Rahimi, we lost that, and I thought was pretty sure we were gonna lose that from the moment I heard about it and realized the guy was a bit of a dirtbag. But meanwhile, for other cases, for gun cases, a little bit of a dirtbag client, it's a born loser. Meanwhile, we have things like, the Miranda versus Arizona, where, the guy was pretty much a career criminal, not a great guy, ended up getting murdered later on, in a bar fight, was just, the guy lived a tough life and all that. But again, was under the impression that he could not mum up and remain silent and not incriminate himself when being interrogated by the police. And that's where we get the Miranda warnings. So we will see where this goes. And honestly,
I have a special reason for wanting to see this particular case ruled on. And yes, I acknowledge, like you say, we don't have a really good chance of winning. But I'm acquainted with someone who was living in New York State at the time and went to receive mental help and was prescribed a medical marijuana card. Now, this person didn't ask for a medical marijuana card. They just received it. They were concerned, and rightly so, that possession of the medical marijuana card would be essentially a legal admission that they are consuming the medical marijuana, and therefore would render them ineligible for firearm ownership. Even if they weren't partaking, and they swear to me they weren't, but they had the card, and that card effectively neutralized any ability they had to buy a gun. And I really wanted to take this case to court because that is, unfortunately, a really sleazy but effective tactic to disarm people. Mm-hmm. We don't want you to have this gun. Here's this medical marijuana card. Uh-oh, there's a conflict. And I so wanted to take it to court, but this person didn't want the hassle. And okay, I respect their decision, but still I grumble because I really wanted to see that tactic ended. And I thought this would have been a pretty slam dunk, but it is not to be. So just for that reason, for feeling thwarted, I really want this case to win. But as you say, this person is a scoundrel. And even though it shouldn't matter, even though the law should be blind, the quality of the character of, I don't know in this case if it's the plaintiff or the defendant, to be honest. But yeah, the character of the person in question can influence the decision. And I think that has a very good chance of happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially when guns are involved. And that's, again, that shouldn't be an issue, but that's definitely the precedent. And we will see. And again, also I've got kind of mixed feelings on this. I just found out about this case as I was working up the show notes. I just to check to see what news, I was over at the Reload and found that there was actually another marijuana case that was rejected. And I assume now that it was rejected because this case was coming through and they were only going to hear one.
Although they have blended cases before.
Yeah. But also could also mean the fix is in. Because I'm just like, I actually didn't look up what the background of the defendant in that case was. But but also another factor that I was going into is possibly the Supreme Court wanted to step away from it because it is a legal gray area. I live in Massachusetts. Marijuana is legal here. I would not participate. I would not partake, even though, you know what? I wouldn't mind. But I won't because, again, at this point in time, it is still illegal federally, and the Supremacy Clause states that even if the state says it's legal, the federal government still can say, nope, it's illegal. And really the only thing that Massachusetts legalization of marijuana has done in the favor of people that use in this state is essentially made it a little bit harder for the DEA, essentially made it so that the DEA actually physically has to track you down and arrest you because the local town cops aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a case that has lots of conflict, and I would love to just see that over with. I mean, if you are of a mind like I am, especially again, this is slightly outside of the purview of the Assorted Calibers podcast, but it's still, in this case, it directly relates to Second Amendment, is the fact that, yeah, if we could just urge our lawmakers to put something forward to just take marijuana off the statute lists, and it'll still be illegal in the states where it's illegal, but it'll also mean that it is 110% free and clear legal in the states that have voted for it to be legal. So it's very much you're being in favor of democracy, because actually most of these have gone through on referendum or representative votes. And then on top of that, it's also good for small businesses, because most of these people that run the dispensaries and farms and all that can't get business loans because, technically speaking, they're running a criminal enterprise as far as the banking world is concerned.
Well, also, by decriminalizing marijuana, you are going to clear a lot of congestion in the courts and reduce prison overcrowding.
That is also true. That is also true. So yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to that. And
well, you think so, and I think so, but it remains to be seen whether or not SCOTUS thinks so.
Yes. And speaking of prison overcrowding and just generally why we're so passionate about the Second Amendment, is this story here. Black gun owners in Chicago charged with felonies despite valid FOID cards and CCLs. So,
I mean, it's Crook County. What are you going to expect?
Yeah. And it's also harkens into the fact that that pretty much all gun control laws root down into class divide and race divide, and it is
good old Jim Crow.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. All Jim Crow. And again, the NFA was simply designed to keep the poors from owning guns. As is our current permitting system. Oh yeah, you want to carry a firearm? Well, then you need to take a training class, and you need to pay this fee and all that. And so, if you're someone that works long hours and or doesn't have a ton of money to go around, throwing in $100 on top of the cost of a new gun and ammunition and things like that is more than a lot of people that are poor and probably living in a bad neighborhood because that's what they can afford. Yeah, this is it's.
Have we actually said what's going on here, Weer'd?
No,
or I feel we buried the lead again.
I read the headline. Essentially, it appears that all of these people have been African American in Chicago, and essentially in these cases they've been stopped for traffic violations, and when they informed the police officer, as is probably a pretty good idea, that there's a firearm in the car. I don't know if they have mandatory reporting in Illinois. Wouldn't surprise me. But when they've reported that they had a firearm and handed over their it's CCL, is what they call the concealed carry permit in that state. The police officers had checked with the database, and at least it doesn't actually say whether or not the database was wrong or if the police were wrong, but essentially found that their permits were invalid, and so they arrested them for carrying without a permit. And it looks like everyone's been the charges have been dropped, which is good, and a complete no-brainer because you've got a permit. So, yeah, this was a...
Well, I mean, this is all bad, but it's actually worse than you are saying, because in one particular instance, a gentleman was stopped, and he produced a physical FOID and... what did you say it? CCL?
CCL.
And what the officer did was go and check it electronically, and his CCL was not in the registry, and then he was arrested for illegally having the gun. But there's also the fact that the law in the state of Illinois specifies that physical cards are sufficient if the driver is stopped. And so if you present to the officer a valid FOID card and a valid CCL, you're not in violation of the law. So it doesn't have to be in the state system. And to my research here, it didn't say that they arrested him for having a fake CCL, just that it was for having unlawful possession of a weapon and unlawful use of a weapon. I don't really see how he unused it lawfully, unless maybe they mean carrying it. I don't know. But the point being is that it is policy that if they hand you a legal CCL and FOID, that's good enough. And you don't have to go digging. And as we found out later, when the charges were dropped, it doesn't hold up. So, yeah, there's that. And then there was another similar problem with another woman. And without banging the racism drum really badly, it does seem a lot like racial profiling. And so you are a minority, you have a gun, and we find something that is a little bit out of place, and instead of doing our due diligence, instead of assuming innocence, we're just going to arrest you. And so that is really, really not good. And so these people, at least the two listed in this particular article, the charges were thrown out, but they had to spend money to fight that. To fight the charges. They had to go through all the legal procedures and take time. They were arrested. The arrest records are still listed. One of the people is a real estate agent, and when you Google her name, there's a picture of her mugshot. You have people who have lost money, whose businesses are in danger because they couldn't continue to do their job. And in at least one case, they couldn't get their gun back, even though there's a court order telling the police to give them her gun back. So, my apologies to the Chicagoans out there, but y'all's city has been dirty for at least 100 years, and it's maybe a little cleaner now, but there's a reason it's called Crook County. And what I really want is for heads to roll, but I don't think it's going to happen because it's realpolitik. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's also, this is, Chicago is one of the bulwarks of the gun prohibition movement, and so yeah, are even the people that claim to be for racial equality. Are they really going to go out on a limb for black gun owners? And so, yeah. And as you mentioned, you said that the permit is enough to clear them on their ability to carry a firearm. And on one of these people, when they arrested him, he they inventoried his possessions, and one of the possessions that they inventoried was his FOID and his CCL. So literally, they said he's got all the stuff that he needs to not be arrested, and it's on his arrest report. So stupid.
Okay, so I don't know. Speaking of stupid,
yeah. So this is breaking news as of the recording of this. I literally just found out about this like a few hours before we started recording the show. But I've started seeing other stuff in the same direction that I think it's pretty safe to say that this is in fact actually going to happen. But essentially, Glock is discontinuing all their firearms except for the Glock 43, the Glock 43X, and the Glock 48X. I'm trying to remember which ones those.
So the 43 is the mini single stack 9mm.
Yes.
And the 42 was the 380 version of that. I think it's really strange / interesting that they're discontinuing the 380, maybe poor sales, but they're keeping the 9mm. The 43X is just a variant on it. I don't know enough about Glocks to tell you that. And I don't know anything about the 48.
I am.
So I to the Googles.
Yeah, I'm on Glock's page. I think the Glock 48 is essentially the single stack Glock 19.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I'm seeing. But Glock's website is acting a bit finicky. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that people are flocking to this website to see what's going on. But
so I'm not terribly surprised by this because we have been hearing for months now, maybe even since SHOT Show, that Glock was in the middle of a massive reorganization and was getting ready to produce a new generation of guns, which was why a lot of the previous generations were being stopped production. Bad grammar, but you know what I mean. And we may have even done a segment on it. I don't recall. But now this, and we want to point out that it is simply a rumor at this time. We don't have anything substantiated. The article literally says rumor alert. But the rumor says that all except those 3 models will be replaced with new Glock V models. And what makes the V model special is that they will have changes. What kind of changes? We don't know. But this change will prevent the installation of a Glock switch, which is one of the things that California has been hemorrhaging about. Mm-hmm. And, all these, you get an illegal switch to illegally modify a gun, and now it's an illegal machine gun. And so we must pass another law to make it even more illegaler. And so Glock, and again, I don't think that Glock was specifically doing this to get in good with California. I think that they were in the process of retooling for a new generation, and they decided if we're going to all this trouble, we might as well take another step and just get rid of the switches, because as I know we did a segment on before, the switches were not made by anyone from Glock. They were made, I want to say like someone from South America
Correct.
made them.
And
so it okay. And so obviously unlicensed, Glock didn't want this to happen, but it's really difficult to control how people use your product, especially if they are in a country that is different from where you manufacture or sell the guns. And so I feel like it's most likely that Glock just said, look, we've got all this trouble, and we're already getting ready to retool for a new generation. Let's just do a little bit more work and stomp this out. Mm-hmm. And I think that will solve the immediate problem, but I also think that in a short period of time, someone's going to find a workaround for it. What with just the sheer amount of Glocks in existence, and the new models will probably be just as popular, and then we've got 3D printing. Someone somewhere will find a way to bypass it. I'm almost certain of this, and then the problem will repeat itself.
Yep, I totally agree. And yeah, I mean, so it's also, yeah, I mean, this really is, it's not really doing a whole lot of anything because, I mean, number one, we've noted that a whole bunch of gun companies are making essentially Glocks, but they're making them to their own specs. And so, you know, your old school Glock needs and parts are still going to be around, even if Glock stops making them entirely. And furthermore, we noted that all these bans that California is pushing should be seen as very, very frightening because it's simply there's nothing unique about a Glock that allows it to take a Glock switch. The Glock switch is a piece of technology that's already been invented and already out there, but there's nothing stopping really any semi-auto from being converted to a machine gun with, you know, the same level of ease of converting a Glock to it. So it's, you know, it's deemed as a pearl clutching. Oh, but what about my safety and all of that? When in fact, it's number one, you hear a lot about gangbangers shooting at each other with full auto Glocks. You don't hear a lot about people getting killed by it because if you've ever shot a full auto Glock, A, the ammo is gone very, very quickly, and B, it's very, very difficult to control.
Yeah, I think the technical term on that is called ride up.
Oh yeah. And
just that muzzle climbs like crazy.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, but also like there are ways around any sort of prevention whatsoever. And the only thing that stops people from doing that is law-abiding people don't want to get on the wrong side of the law. And criminals do not care at all. So yeah, this is I mean, Glock do what you want to do. I hope you're not doing it to try to appease California, because that's never going to go well, because they hate you and they hate every gun maker, and they only want enough guns to arm their cops and security guards. So yeah, that's this story. You know, it sounds like these new generation Glocks will not be compatible with several of the parts that you may have for that. So, but again, if you've got a Glock that you've got all tricked out with various parts and you want to maintain that, but need to get a new gun, you can go to like Palmetto State Armory or Ruger or any place like that and get yourself another Glock to drop in all of those Glock parts, or 3D print one. So yeah, that's how much this is going to change the world, which is not at all.
But at least they're doing something.
Yes, we must do something. Tilting at windmills. All right. Well, I think it's time to move into our first segment, and we've got a segment from Tiny, and Tiny's company took him on an appreciation hunt, and I'll just say, lessons were learned.
Hello all in ACP land, it's me, Tiny, with another installment of Deep Thoughts from the Land of Rocks and Cows. About a month ago, I was invited to go to what I thought was a customer appreciation hunt. I thought I was going to be handing out waters and such to facilitate a hunt for contractors and lumberyard employees that buy product from my employer. So I thought I'd be funny, and rather than wearing a blaze orange t-shirt, I went and bought a blaze orange dress shirt off the clearance rack. That was a mistake. Now, the day before, as I was driving my mom to a doctor's appointment in Fargo, I found out that I was actually going to be tromping around through the bush hunting myself. So I started drinking water like it was going out of style. Why, you ask? Because the next day when we would be hunting was going to be one of the hottest days on record for September in Minnesota. It was a blistering 89 degrees and 90% humidity with very little wind. And as a rotund person like myself that used to work in the heat all the time, I knew I needed to start hydrating as soon as possible. So the next day I showed up with my dad's over under 20 gauge that he had bought not long before he passed. And I worked for a few hours, and then we headed to the game farm, which happened to be the same one that hosts the giant try and buy gun show I talked about last year. We headed out and were on our first little field, and we got half our limit on that first field. From there, the day just got harder. A combination of inexperienced hunters, high heat index, meant that we ended up hunting and walking almost 6 miles that day. It was a very fun day, though. While on break between drives, I watched a couple of bald eagles riding thermals and just soaked up being in nature. About halfway through the hunt, one of my coworkers pointed out a plane circling the field that we were in and looked up and said, "I think we're being used as training for an AC-130 crew from the National Guard base up the road." In the last half-mile trek back to the trucks, I realized that I was in trouble. Even though I had been hydrating like no tomorrow and trying to be careful, I stopped sweating, and then right as we were getting back to the truck, I started getting nauseous. Both early signs of heat exhaustion and then heat stroke. I informed one of my coworkers that I needed to get some fluid and into the air conditioning ASAP. Luckily, that's as far as things went. Moral of the story is, if you are out of shape like me, no matter how much you prep, be aware of your own body and know what to do in certain situations. You can enjoy hunting in the outdoors, but be smart. If you have any questions or comments, post them in the ACP Facebook group and Aaron or Weer'd can get them to me. And please be kind to each other. With all the crazy stuff going on in the world, you never know what may be your last conversation with a loved one.
So Tiny forgot to mention in his segment, but they were hunting pheasants. So if you were wondering like me, but what kind of birds? They were pheasants. And listening to your body is key. That was really what saved Tiny from a very, very unpleasant time. I get the stop sweating thing where suddenly I will be just feeling warm to suddenly I am really hot. And it is, the sweat stopped and the heat's just building up. For my wife, if she gets really, really busy doing stuff, she will forget to drink and not realize that she is getting dehydrated, and she'll suddenly start feeling really tired and worn down. And because she's been busy, she just assumes it's because she's been working so hard. And I have finally started telling her, no, drink some water and you'll start bouncing back. And so she started doing that. So that's good news. And Aaron, I think it's time for people to be refreshed on your Mag 40 story.
Mag 40 story about dehydration.
Well, didn't you get heat stroke at a Mag 40 event?
No, I came down with some sort of virus that had me going at both ends.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I qualified Mag 40 while sick. Now, here's the story, and I think I used to know the name of the virus, but you know how good I am with names. And so, yeah, it was the final day of Mag 40. It was the qualification shoot, and I was nervous because I worry. And so right before it was my time to shoot, I threw up. And we were shooting outdoors, so it was fairly easy for me just to wander off and puke behind a tree. And it wasn't a whole lot of puke, and so I just thought, okay, it was nerves. I felt bad, but I didn't really feel sick. But, I mean, just puking can be kind of traumatic for the body because, your body is forcing itself to spasm. And so, your heart rate goes up, you feel a little bit woozy. It's just, wow, I threw up. And so that's what I'm feeling when I'm shooting my quals for Mag 40. I no longer remember what it was that I shot. I've got it written down somewhere. I did qualify. I was not happy with the score. And it was only later when I found out just how sick I was that I was a lot happier with my score, because it's like, okay, well, if I could shoot that when I'm sick, when I'm feeling better, I'll be a much better shot. But yeah, I threw up some more, and then when we came back for the final bit of the classroom, that's when the other end started going. And it was an absolutely miserable night in my hotel room, because I would be going so much that I would feel dehydrated. And so, okay, my mouth is completely dry. I've got to have just something to drink. So I would sip some water or some Gatorade, and then like a few minutes later, out it comes. And I was sharing a hotel room with Wellawant, and, you know, bless his heart, he was really kind to me. He got me the Gatorade, but I got him sick, unfortunately. I warned him. It's like, dude, I'm pretty sure I'm going to give you something, and he did get it. But at the risk of getting graphic here, you know things are bad when you're in a hotel bathroom, you're sitting on the toilet, and you lean over into the tub to puke. I mean, I've never been more close to implosion than that.
I've heard someone say it was the Penny Arcade guys talking about one of the PAX Con cruds saying that you go into the bathroom and there's the toilet, and you have to choose which end to put on the toilet, and you must choose wisely.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that one of the lunches we ate was contaminated with something, because I wasn't the only person to get sick that night. So, fun. But here's a potential. Well, actually, it is about heat exhaustion, but maybe this is a little better than that. So I was at, we'll call it a shooting event, here in Florida. And Oleg was photographer for it, and he invited me along. And it was a very typical hot summer day. I want to say it was August, maybe September. And Oleg is from further north. And he was typically hyperfixated and running around and photographing things. And I could tell that he was a little bit he was affected, because he wasn't walking completely straight. He was wobbling a little bit. He was kind of incoherent. And so that was when I basically took charge. And it's just, okay, hand around wrist. Oleg, you're coming with me. I'm taking you into the air conditioning. You're going to sit down now. Okay, here is a 20-ounce bottle of Gatorade. All right. Here you go. You're going to drink it, and you don't get up from that chair until you've drunk that first little bulb thing. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with how Gatorade looks, but It's got kind of a bulb, and then it narrows for the plastic rings, and then it goes back into a cylindrical shape. And so it's basically like the first third, and it's just, you don't move from that chair until you've drunk that first third. And I sat there and I watched him until he drank it, and then it was like, okay, good. Oh, also, it was cold Gatorade, so even better. And, I mean, it wasn't anything dramatic. I don't think he had stopped sweating, but it is very easy, if you are having fun, if you're otherwise focused, to tune out a lot of your body needs until your body says, and we're done. So yeah, pay attention. Now, I don't really have this problem because I have a history of kidney stones, and so after having enough of those, I am just constantly drinking something. Usually it's like water or Gatorade or fruit juice, but it doesn't matter. I just need to be drinking something because I don't like kidney stones. They're awful. They're very painful. I don't ever want to have one again. So just ABD, always be drinking.
I mean, I luckily have that anyway. I've got a beverage in front of me just to keep my voice going. But yeah, I say it, and I mean this in the least problematic way, that I am a compulsive drinker. I always need to have a beverage in front of me. And
I see you posted rotavirus. Yeah, I believe that was the name.
Yeah, that was the one that popped in. That's probably the most common one for it's coming out of both ends. Yeah.
So, if you were eating while you were listening to this podcast, I'm very sorry.
many apologies for that. But yeah, we're a podcast for everybody, so that includes health issues.
Oh, thank you. I was afraid you were going to go somewhere else.
And we're also glad that Tiny is that Tiny turned out okay from that, and has a bunch of birds in his freezer.
So people have called David a king among men, and here he is to tell you about his many crowns, barrel crowns, that is.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. As has been mentioned many times over the years, once the bullet leaves the barrel, there's nothing else we can do to influence its path. So in this segment, I'd like to talk about the final effect we can apply, the often underappreciated barrel crown. Using a web search with the term barrel crown produces quite a few results, from tools, services, more questions, discussions, and even arguments. First, let's start with some definitions. The crown is the machined face at the muzzle end of a barrel. This term is also used for the area where the end of the rifling intersects with that face, though this feature is more properly called the chamfer. The bore is the interior portion of the barrel that's rifled to impart spin to the bullet. A variety of different styles and shapes of crowns have evolved over many years to meet specific shooting needs. Maintaining uniformity and consistency of the crown is considered important, as this is the last point of contact between the bullet and the barrel on its trip to the target. As I'll discuss in more detail, the actual type of crown is considered less important to accuracy than the consistency of the chamfer where the crown intersects with the bore. For those familiar with traditional rifles or revolvers, the standard or radiused crown is what we expect to see. In this version, the crown is gently rounded from the outside of the barrel to where it meets the bore. While this type of crown can be simpler to manufacture, there is the potential challenge of cutting it consistently for optimal accuracy. The radiused crown does provide relatively good protection of the crown-bore interface. As with most crown types, if damaged, it's generally easier to trim the end of the barrel flat and recut the crown from scratch. Another style, often seen on bench rest target rifles, is the straight or flat crown. As the name implies, the crown is cut perpendicular to the bore with a very slight chamfer where they meet. This is possibly the easiest crown to manufacture, as the barrel can be mounted in a lathe, indexed on the bore, and a straight cut taken across the muzzle. Without changing any other settings, a small bevel can then be cut at the interface. However, the flat crown provides very little protection to the chamfer where the crown meets the bore. Next is the target crown. At first glance, it looks very similar to the straight crown, but this one is cut to somewhere between 9 and 13 degrees, angled inward from the outer edge of the barrel to the bore. As usual, this is followed by a minor bevel, like on the previous version. While only a little more complicated to cut, the target crown does provide slightly more protection to the chamfer than the straight cut variety. Recessed is related to both the flat and target crowns. In this style, there is an inner and outer section of the crown. They may be separated by a step or two different increasing angles. Pros and cons are also similar to the flat and target crowns, though more time and effort is required to cut properly. Last but not least, we have the deep recessed crown. This brings us back to the standard crown I mentioned earlier. The difference is the curve is more rounded, which sets the bore crown interface further back from the end of the muzzle. This style is often seen on hunting rifles as it gives more protection than the standard crown while still maintaining a classic look. Now that we've covered the different types of barrel crowns, the next question is, how important are they really? The answer is, it depends. More precision and consistency are generally better when it comes to shooting accurately, of course. However, a number of people have tested different types and amounts of crown and muzzle damage with varying results. One type of experiment involved cutting the muzzle to different angles and seeing how that affected performance. In these tests, other than altering the point of impact, the group size didn't change significantly. In another set of experiments, metal was displaced from the crown into the edge of the bore interface. The results of this test showed considerable divergence from previously checked accuracy, with some bullets missing the target entirely and many of the rest impacting almost randomly. The displaced metal caused a small amount of damage to the passing bullet as it left the barrel, affecting its form and balance. This apparently caused the bullets to fly erratically on their way to the target. Based on these admittedly limited data samples, as well as other references I've read and my own experiences, it appears the quality of the bore-crown interface, aka chamfer, is more important than the type or machining quality of the crown itself, the main purpose of the crown being to protect that chamfer from any damage. Therefore, taking care of the muzzle and crown of a rifle will likely pay off in more consistent accuracy and an overall better shooting experience. It shouldn't surprise anyone that treating our tools well is to our benefit. Have fun and safe shooting.
The crown is the entire face of the rifle's muzzle and can have various shapes. As the bullet leaves the barrel of the gun, the shape, alignment, and the condition of the crown can affect the accuracy of your shot.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments, or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
I mean, David notes that not only is the crown the last point of contact between the bullet and the barrel, but it's also the symmetry of the muzzle blast can also affect how the bullet flies. So if there is any asymmetry, that could, in fact, also get the bullet started off on a bad trajectory.
So this isn't specifically about the crown, but it is about the last part of the barrel. And so, sometime within the last 10 years, I'm going to say, I got my Sub 2000, and I wanted to put an aftermarket front sight post on it. And in the Sub 2000, the front sight post attaches directly to the barrel. Okay, except for the fact that it's attached by some kind of adhesive. You know, you can't just unscrew it. It's like epoxied on there. And I'm told the easy way to do it is you buy a blowtorch, one of those propane canisters with the nozzle, and you heat up the barrel, and you heat it up enough to melt the adhesive or soften the plastic or whatever, and you slide it off. And sure, that's what I did. And I installed the aftermarket front sight post, and I thought everything was great, except I started having accuracy problems. And at this point, I don't remember how bad the accuracy problem was, but it was along the lines of, I know where the bullet should be hitting because I've got a laser bore sight, and I've got my red dot sight zeroed to it, but the bullet is going way the heck over there. And so, at one point, I had reason to be in Cocoa Beach, Florida, where Kel-Tec is, and I took it in, and I said, gun's not shooting right. Take a look at it. And they took a look, and they said, yeah, there was some sort of a problem with the barrel, so we just swapped it out for you. Here you go, should shoot fine. And it did. And it wasn't until much later that I realized I probably messed up the tempering or something with the blowtorch. I maybe had it there a little too long, a little too hot, a little too whatever, and I bet that did it. And like I said, it wasn't right there at the crown, but it was in like the last inch, maybe last 2 inches of the barrel. And I think it did it just enough that it threw off the aim. So, yeah, little changes can have big effects on firearms.
Yeah, especially, like you said, when you see a lot of the elaborate barrel crowns, and you can see these in the show notes. David provided a bunch of really good pictures. You'll often see those in like the long range rifles because, you learn about like minute of angle. It's 1 inch at 100 yards, but that's like 10 inches at 1,000 yards. So it keeps opening up and opening up. So any little bump to that bullet can drastically change where it lands. But Aaron, do you know who always flies true?
I mean, I know you want me to say our listeners, but that's such a blanket statement. I don't know if that's correct.
Some of them may be loners and rebels.
Yeah.
Either way, we love our listeners. Thank you, each and every one of you guys, for joining us for our show and listening in. And we got to thank you guys, but we also need to give a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast and sign up. It's not we're not begging. It's not a tip jar. It's not a charity. We're selling stuff. We've got early release of the podcast. We've got the ACP blooper reels. We've got the ACP film tracks, and we have the ACP mag dump, all for you to listen to.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. That's weerdworld.com. That's weerdworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
So this is the point where I usually say something clever, but I can't think of anything clever right now. So the template here is Weer'd is like this, and I am like that. We're assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.